Hello, class. Today we're going to talk about reading. How do you read in a second language? How can you get through a text this thick in a second language? Well, I have some tips and strategies for you. Reading is an extremely important skill to develop. It's important to read in your native language, and it's important to read in the language you're learning. It really is the skill that turns your language to the next level. Okay, so if you're saying, what can I do to really improve? My answer would be reading. Reading, reading, reading. And I've told you this many times before, but reading helps you recognize grammar. It helps you with spelling. It helps you become fluent. It helps with vocabulary. It really helps with a lot of linguistic issues just by reading more. Okay, so let's look at some strategies. First, I'm going to ask you, what do we read? What are some genres we read in our everyday life? We read things like newspapers, magazines, books, mail, bills, doctor notes, texts, email, signs, and directions. How do we read this material? Right? Think about each of these different genres of reading. How do you read each one? Well, we've deduced our reading skills into 4 different types. Okay, the first type is skimming and then scanning, intensive reading, and extensive reading. Okay, so what is skimming? Skimming is used to quickly gather the most important information or the gist. This is done by running your eyes over the text, remembering important information. Use skimming to quickly get the main idea. So what do we skim? We skim things like newspapers, magazines, business and travel brochures. We use skimming often, and it's usually done quickly. We're just trying to gather the most important facts quickly. Scanning. Scanning is different. It's used to find a particular piece of information. Okay, this is done by running your eyes over the text, looking for that specific piece of information. So, for example, if your train leaves at 4 o'clock, you're going to look at a train schedule and you're going to look at 4 o'clock departure. You're looking for a particular piece of information. This is called scanning. We scan things like a conference guide, TV listing. Next is intensive reading. Intensive reading is used on shorter texts and you get specific information. It is close, accurate reading for detail. You need to know the specifics. Okay, examples are insurance claims. We want to know how much money we need to spend. Okay, anything that has to do with money, we're always very particular to read the details. A contract, the same thing. If you enter into a contract, you want to know what are the conditions. Is this contract for 1 week or is it for 1 year? You need to know every single word. You're going to spend time looking up every word in that contract if you don't know it, okay? A prescription or a doctor's note, the same thing. Your health is at stake. You want to know what's going on with your body. It's very important. You want to know every single word in that prescription. Next is extensive reading. Extensive reading is used to get through something like a novel. It's to get the general understanding of a subject. It includes reading longer texts for pleasure. So my example book at the beginning, if you look at that length, this would be an extensive reading book. You read things like a novel, magazine, a biography. So let's look at good reading habits. A good reading habit is to read the entire section on your first time through, even if you don't understand the words. After your first reading, you can go back and read sections you didn't understand. Okay, oftentimes the problem with reading in a second language is you go so slow that the reading no longer makes sense. If you think about it, what if I spoke to you in this manner? Read the entire section. If I speak slowly, you're not getting the main information. It's not sinking in very easily. Same thing with reading. If you read too slow, you actually are hurting yourself. You're not helping. Okay, so it's not very helpful to read each word slowly. If you use your finger to guide you, that's okay, but make sure your finger is always ahead of you. Make sure your finger is not slowing you down. You're going to read the text in small chunks. Try to read phrases or sentences rather than a single word. Again, stop the translating. Stop focusing on single words. Look at the main picture, the context. And lastly, read, read, read. Keep reading in class and at home. Whenever you can, you should be reading. A good reader acts as a detective. You must find the solution to the problem or the mystery. With each chapter, you ask yourself questions like who, what, when, why, where, and how. You look for clues. You are very aware of the text, of bold, of underline, of colors, of photos. You look at the titles and subtitles. You ask questions before you start to read. Oftentimes, this is the biggest learning curve. What are you reading about? Who is the author? What does the author usually say? Sometimes just doing a quick search on who the author is will give you an immense insight into the book. Okay, always ask yourself, who's writing this? From what perspective? From what bias? From what slant? That means, where are they coming from? Do they have a particular political preference, religious preference? Are they a scientist? Are they a teacher? Okay, all these things matter when you read an article or a book or whatever you read. Remember, who is writing this information? Especially in today's world, right? Fake news. Where does it come from? Who's writing it? Next, I want to talk about annotating a text. Annotating is simply marking up a text, kind of like this picture shows here, drawing pictures, underlining, interacting. You interact with the text. You don't sleep. You get in there, you ask questions, you highlight, you interact, you personally say, oh, this sentence here, it reminds me of when I was a child. So whatever it is, you interact. Let's look at how this person annotated their paragraphs. This will give you an example of different ways to annotate. Okay, so here they talk about an insight, so something that made them, when they read this article, something made them think of an idea they heard last week, okay, and they wrote it down. Over here, they have definitions written out. Here they do have a few words translated, and that's okay. You can translate a word if you see it over and over and it's an important word and you don't know what it is, that's okay. And here they make some more notes about how they can personally relate to this text. Some other ways that you read to understand. Remember, anything that makes reading more active than passive is helpful. You must actively engage to fully understand, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to write down questions while you read. Why? Why did the author say this? What does this mean? How can that dictate the conclusion? Okay, you're going to ask questions while you read. You can actually just write the questions here in the side. Make connections. This reminds me of, this makes me think of, or this is similar to. Form opinion. This is something I really like. You know, there's the thumbs down, thumbs up, and you don't really care either way. But try to get down to your emotions. You know, if something really makes you angry, you're going to mark it. If something makes you laugh, you're going to mark it in the paper. And then, you know, lastly, annotate. You highlight, you underline, you circle, you write notes. Okay, be sure that you are aware of your metacognition. What this means is awareness and understanding of your own thought process. So being aware of how you're thinking can help you improve your understanding. Have you ever been reading and gotten to the end of a page and asked yourself, what did I just read? I have, and it's usually because your mind wanders. Maybe you think of something more interesting. You didn't even notice you were not paying attention. Well, be aware of different ways you can fix this. Identify the problems. When are you confused? Maybe you need more background information. Maybe you didn't expect the author to say something. When did you stop paying attention? Use strategies. Again, ask questions, make connections, form opinions, make predictions, make inferences. Prediction and inferences. What do you think is going to happen next? Make sure you're guessing. What just happened? What will happen next? And then fix-ups. Reread the part. Read, check, and go back. Do some research. Save the fix-ups for the parts that you really do need to research. Don't do it to everything you read. Lastly, schema. Schema is the information you already know about the topic. Having background information about a topic is important. Without it, it's hard to understand all the information. Do you think this cartoon is funny? So here we have the little Matryoshka doll entering into the bus station, and she says, "1 ticket." Reading academic texts can be sometimes like trying to understand a cartoon. You may know every word but still feel totally lost unless you have some background information. So for those of you who don't know what a Matryoshka doll is, she has many other little dolls inside, and that's what these dolls are known for. You pop off the head and there's another doll. You pop off the head and there's another doll. So it's a funny joke because you know that there's a lot more dolls inside this big doll. And he says, "1 ticket, really?" Activate prior knowledge, do research, make it social. Again, it's hard to be social during this pandemic time, but try to talk to each other, text each other, chat, email. Be aware of conflicting schema. Sometimes your background knowledge on the topic takes you in the wrong direction, and be ready to recognize this when it happens. Recognize pronoun references. Now, if you get confused with all the pronouns, those there, stop yourself. Ask yourself, what is it referring to? Distinguish between fact and opinion. This is very important. What is an opinion and what is the facts? Recognize text structure and sequence. And as I've said, the bold and the underline, why are those there? They are there for a reason. And make inferences, guesses about what you're going to read next. Again, if you apply these reading strategies and use the tips that I shared with you, I really believe that your English reading will be a little less frustrating and you'll be able to conquer that book or that essay or that paragraph that you're trying to read. Remember to choose material that is not too difficult as well. That's very important. Usually there is specific reading material for ESL students, or you can go and you can look at different novels, but they're in the young adult version, and that will not overwhelm you. If something's simply just overwhelming you, put it down. If you must read through an overwhelming piece of material, then you're going to apply intensive reading skills and you're going to get through it. But again, pick books, pick magazines, pick essays that you can read and practice your reading skills in English. This is the next step to your success. Thank you. Again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and watch my other videos. Check out my website, www.plus1english.com, and contact me. And if you mention that you watched this video, you'll receive a promo code for being a first-time student. And you'll receive an entire free lesson if you can discover why the name of my website is Plus One. So use the contact box in the website and give me your answer. Thank you.